Sounds great.
Hello, everyone. My name is Amani. I am a project coordinator, student employee for Project Excite, and I just wanted to welcome everybody to um, this Xplore workshop with Jason Reuter. Is that correct?
Reuter, like the news service.
Reuter. Okay.
Yes.
So he will just give his intro about what he's doing as more people pile in. I just encourage everyone to ask questions. If you'd like to be promoted to panelists to show your face and be more interactive, I can do that. Just let me know in the chat and let's get started.
Yeah, thank you, Monty. And as Monty stated, my name is Jason Reuter, and I am a DU Pioneer alum. I got my master's degree in the economics department back in 2013. And I am an investment professional and economist, and I've been doing a lot of different things for the University of Denver, and the chance to come here and talk about the career was something that I've done a lot for some of the firms I've worked for, and I've worked a lot with associates and just talking about careers because it's an amorphous topic, especially when you're a student. And I'm happy to go through my story. I've got some slides prepared to kind of guide the conversation. As Amani said, I'm also hoping that it's a little bit interactive, that if you have questions that you feel free to jump in. For the meantime, I'm going to pull up my Monty, I'm trying to share my screen and it says host disabled participant screen sharing. Is that something you could activate for me? Did you hear me, Monty?
Yeah, can you try it now?
All right, there we go.
Cool.
All right. This is what I'm looking to share. All right, as I said, my name is Jason Reuter. This is my career journey. So when you kind of talk about a career, it kind of goes very linear, and this is kind of the first step I have to talk about what I've done and where I'm at. I put out here that I did graduate back in 1996 with my BA, so I've been in the workforce for 24 years now. I went to Northern Illinois University. I was born and raised in the Chicago area, and had the opportunity to go and study nearby. I got my BA in economics from Northern Illinois University. So as you can see, economics is a big theme in what I've done in my career, and I'll talk a little bit about that as we go on. But my first job was actually working for a small bank for about 18 months. I came out of college and worked in the savings department with an ambition of moving into the mortgage part of the business at this small bank. And for about 18 months, I learned the ins and outs of the bank. It was actually a really small bank. I think it was about 6 or 7 branches in a county, Montgomery County, where I went to prep school is how I came across that area. So I actually moved from Illinois to Pennsylvania for this job. But really I guess the crux of my career really started in 1998 when I had the opportunity to work for the Vanguard Group. And for myself, I studied economics. I loved investing. It was always something I was interested in. And in 1998, I had the ability to move from Abington Bank to the Vanguard Group. And I worked there for, I think it was 7.5 years. I started out in a record keeping role for 1 year. That was kind of my foot in the door job I had there. And then as I was exploring the company, I had the opportunity to learn about, what does it take to do work on a mutual fund, to be involved in investing. And I had I guess a company mentor who pointed me in the direction of mutual fund accounting. I had no idea what that meant. But it was actually a role where you work on the mutual funds, you do the accounting for the books. And for myself, it was a great foray into learning every little thing that goes into running a mutual fund, being a part of a mutual fund itself. That entailed doing the accounting of all the transactions. When I did this role, you were actually the accountant for a set of funds, and you did everything from booking entries into the fund to pricing your fund to creating the annual reports for the shareholder report for the funds, and really doing everything soup to nuts. And it was a phenomenal way to learn how money comes into an investment company, how it finds its way to the portfolio team, how the portfolio team goes through their process, and ultimately, how every transaction gets booked, and every day you actually close the books on your fund. So it's a repetitive process, but at the same time, no day was different. There was different transactions, markets were different. It was a really great way to learn the ins and outs, like I said, of being part of an investment company. That was a great learning experience. And then I migrated into what's called the portfolio review department, which was one of the most enjoyable roles I had. And if you know anything about investing and mutual funds, there's some funds that are run internally to the portfolio company. There's some that are run externally. And in the portfolio review department, we had the job of actually overseeing all the portfolio managers internal to Vanguard. And Vanguard actually hired a whole bunch of other portfolio managers as well. So it was a great way to learn from a wide variety of portfolio managers and investment teams, and to go through the process of actually doing the due diligence of having a backup to all the mutual funds of portfolio managers and teams that we would look to pivot to if performance or other reasons why a portfolio team wasn't meeting their targets, where you could actually migrate and select a new manager. So it also was an opportunity to write investment recommendations for people who had 401ks with Vanguard, and you could look at their investment lineup and really put together these tiers of investment opportunities within their 401k to help them. So every participant in a 401k had access to selected higher advice for their purposes. I did this for a little while, and then my last role when I was at Vanguard was actually in the legal division. This was a fascinating opportunity because the legal division was growing and constantly coming to the portfolio review department and the portfolio teams themselves on investment opportunities that needed expertise. And so I was actually sought to come into the legal department as an investment analyst to really provide investment expertise to the legal division when it comes to preparing board memos and preparing the executives for board meetings, talking about the investment state of things. Legal departments have to provide all this to the board. And so my job was really to be that in-house expert for them, as well as I was tasked with really starting up the derivative trading infrastructure for Vanguard. Derivatives are a completely different asset class than stocks or bonds, and it actually entails putting together a marketplace with every bank that you want to trade with. And that's a very legal, contract-heavy process. And I had some securities lawyers I worked with who worked with me and basically taught me the securities law necessary to understand these legal contracts we were putting together. And then I provided the expertise on credit ratings of the banks that we were trading with, the provisions of the contracts that were credit related, and really kind of bringing, again, that investment expertise to this process. From there, I had gotten married when I was at Vanguard, and my wife was here in Colorado, or when we started, when we were engaged. And she moved out to Pennsylvania for a short time, but we always had our eye on wanting to be in Colorado. It was home for us and where we wanted to move to. And so in 2005, I had the opportunity to come to Colorado finally, and come to Oppenheimer Funds, where I got to do this same thing of working in derivatives for Oppenheimer Funds. Came in and basically, like I started at Vanguard, I started putting in the legal framework to really govern and oversee the derivatives trading at Oppenheimer Funds. And through that process, I had the chance to get involved in a couple other aspects of my job. While I was the head of derivative operations at Oppenheimer, I also had the opportunity to be involved in the Investment Risk Management Committee and the Counterparty Risk Committee to really provide expertise to the oversight committees that govern the trading in the mutual funds. I did this for 5 years, and one of the most pivotal events in my career was in 2010. Brown Brothers Harriman acquired my division of about 180 people from Oppenheimer Funds, and used our department to start up their Colorado office. And so I became an actual acquisition and started doing the same thing for Brown Brothers Harriman from 2010 to about 2015, doing the same thing, and was hired back to do derivatives operations for Oppenheimer Funds from a lease standpoint, I guess you could call it. And while at Brown Brothers, I also worked, again, like in derivatives and leveraged loan working group. And for the past 4 years, I've been a product executive in BBH's FinTech division. And this was an opportunity where I had all this investment background, and Brown Brothers was really looking to migrate into getting financial technology to be a better and bigger part of its portfolio. So for the past 4 or 5 years, I've been working on putting the strategy together to take a lot of this operation work that I have a background in, and really working with our technology team to create applications, to create really a suite of technology tools so that investment companies can further automate and get better data and digital insight into their trading operations. That's the high level of my career. But one thing I really wanted to focus on in this talk is, those things are just my professional titles and roles, but there's a lot that goes into how your career evolves, the professional activities you get involved in, the skills you build. And a lot of this stuff doesn't come across on a resume, but it really happens over the course of a career. And so I wanted to spend a little time talking about, kind of what I've looked back on and reflected on from my career. And going back to, it looks like there's a Q&A here. Sorry, I'll hold off on that. Sorry about that. One of the things, when I came out of college, I actually had gone to high school in that Pennsylvania area, and my former principal recruited me to come back and be a housemaster in the dormitory in the prep school I went to. It was where I was living for this Abington bankroll, and it was actually fascinating to really do 2 jobs when I first came out of college, running a dormitory with a couple of my friends for high schoolers, and starting my finance career. So it's actually one of those kind of things that doesn't fit into my professional resume, but it really was integral to helping me right out of college get some really good experience on mentoring, helping a dormitory of about 50 high school young men living away from their family and doing their schoolwork, and then really kind of helping them guide themselves through that time in their lives. I also worked on a team of other housemasters, so really started learning about teamwork. And being new out of college, you learn about personal budgeting and time management to really help yourself stay on good footing. As I said, Vanguard was my first investment role, and I can't say enough at how amazing this opportunity was for myself. It was a chance to go to a company where I got to do investing, but it was also one where I really got a first experience in what culture in a company looks like. Vanguard was founded by Jack Bogle, who, if you don't know investing, he was one of the largest visionaries in the 20th century in finance. And in 1975, he started Vanguard with the purpose of having a truly shareholder-owned and client-owned company. So not only do you invest in their funds, but you, by virtue of investing in these funds, become an owner in the company. And he was paramount in keeping this focus of we are here for the investor, that they are number one in everything that we do. And it really permeated the culture from day one there and my entire time there and even afterwards. I was also fortunate enough to, when I went to the legal division, my office was just around the corner from Mr. Bogle's. And so I got to know him a bit personally, and he was a tremendous person. He came across as this, very powerful figure, and he was, but he was also very good one-on-one and knew you personally and would ask about you. And he was probably the most pivotal person I came across in my whole career. And the fact that the things that he championed of we are stewards of other people's money aligned with my own personal ethics and really has been foundational to everything I've done in my career. So I think it was fortuitous, but also exceptional for my own personal development. Things I learned as I migrated really from a young professional to understanding what you're doing was then really becoming what I call an emerging leader. It started at my end of my time at Vanguard, but you really start focusing more on, I want to do bigger and better things. And it's a great awareness to have and a ambition to be aware of and a way to find how are you going to cultivate those skills. And when I migrated to Oppenheimer, I had a staff and I got to build up a division. So really, I started off with a staff of 2 from the get-go, and I built it to about 15 to 20 people over the course of the 5 years I was there. And you learn a lot by having other mentors who you admire and take pieces of how they lead, and trial and error of being open and honest with the people who report to you and just trying to create the best environment. So those are things that I really took from what I call the emerging leader stage. And then it really kind of migrated into, you got more and more responsibilities at your work. I, especially during this time I call the early executive, the last 10 years, I've really started to take on things that I am passionate about. And one of the reasons I wanted to talk today was started being aware of how big the industry is and how as your network expands, you get more opportunities. And I've had the opportunity to work on several nonprofit boards, one from a startup social organization. The board of my prep school is another one I've been on. I'm on one of the DU Arts and College of Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences boards. And it's really sort of helped me uncover how much I really love being a part of governance and oversight work for boards. And so I really found that to be an exceptional part of my career. And during this time, I really wanted to be an expert in my field. And so it was why I went back and got my graduate degree in economics. It's why I pursued what's called the CFA designation, which is a graduate level designation for investment management. And it's really a statement of doing things in an ethical and professional manner as an investment professional. And so I really built out my skill set to, really make myself an asset to my companies, but other organizations that I want to be able to contribute to and help out. And that also is something that will be part of what I aspire to in the next stages of my career. Now I'm gonna switch to, actually, one thing I wanted to just highlight on this events timeline was, I mentioned at the outset that your career can be shown linear on a resume, but a lot of life events happen. Sometimes that gets washed out in the course of a career, but sometimes really small and really big things happen to be integral to what goes on. And so I just spent a little bit of time talking about some of the things that I went through. I went through a move, and I had my first job in an apartment, and had the excitement of going to a company that really excited me in Vanguard, so a job change. But then you have these big events, obviously, as we're seeing with COVID-19 right now, but they happen throughout the course of your career. Asian financial crisis, Y2K, 9/11, dot-com era were pivotal parts to my Vanguard career. But they don't ever stop. And it's one thing that you learn how is to adjust and to stay focused and to decompress and to find ways to not let the heaviness of everything wear you down. And in the 2003 to 2010 era, the global financial crisis was a huge event going on. And with a young child, my first child was born in 2007. So, it was a scary time professionally, but it's also a scary time personally because you've got a child that you're responsible for. And that's a part of, growing as a professional is being able to manage all these different things. I called it exogenous events because they do happen from out of nowhere sometimes. And it's really important just to learn how to process all of these things. And even over the past 10 years, I had a mentor of mine pass away, which is a big event. My second daughter's born. I talked about the graduation things, but there's good and there's tough and challenging things that happen outside of your job, but affect everything. And, I'm wanted to just reiterate that as challenging as this time is too, these things come and go, and there is a new day or a new time period after all of this. One thing I talked about at the beginning here was just reflecting on some of the things in my career. When Nina and Kanitha asked me, or said that they'd like to hear some of my career stuff, I did a lot of time reflecting on things going on. And, each of these periods in my career have really, brought a different lesson to me. And as I said, at Abington Bank, it was my first job, and just learning about what professional work expectations are has been, really something that each time I have a new role or go to a new company, that now even go back and reflect on what I learned there of, doing good work, opening your eyes, learning things, and being a humble part of the team is something that's always been something I've tried to take into every opportunity. At Vanguard, I really talked about that culture that Mr. Bogle put out there of the clients are who we do this for, and that stakeholder mindset has been something that's been invaluable for me throughout my career. When I think about Oppenheimer funds, I mentioned the global financial crisis happened during that time, and it was a big thing to know that this is no longer theoretical. This is stuff that's happening, and that was an important lesson to take in. And then, in the past 10 years at my time at Brown Brothers, it's one of those things where I've acquired more expertise, I've gotten bigger and better responsibilities. And one of the things that I really valued over this time is the fact that I've gotten to work with a lot of large investing clients, a lot of mutual fund companies, and it's really rewarding to hear from them that they value the input as they go through their process and their role, and they value what you can bring to them as a client, or as them being your client. And then just think about the future. Here are the things that I want to incorporate into my future in a career, and that's kind of where I wanted to segment next to was kind of what does discovering fulfilling work look like for you. Talked a little bit about my career, some of the things that I've found that I've enjoyed, particularly this governance and board work. And things that I wanted to project today are look for volunteer opportunities. I had a chance to be on the board of my old prep school. I wanted to give back, and as an investment professional, our prep school has a large endowment, and so they needed people with an investment background to manage the money for the organization. So here I had an opportunity to contribute in a governance role, but also managed for 7 years a large endowment. They were fortunate to have over 500 million in the endowment with the prep school, but also other charities that were part of this commingled fund. So it was a great way to combine things that I like doing. Other things that I've found really valuable to putting a career together, or surviving a career, however you want to look at it, is talk to a mentor. I know DU has opportunities for people to get mentors, like through Project Excite here. But I really encourage people to get a mentor, whether it's formal or informal, or a combination of people that you admire. I think having someone to talk to, or a group of people, even more importantly, is really a great and powerful tool to help you throughout your career. And I think the other thing that I really valued is, by getting involved in different things, you really start off what I call a virtuous cycle. You find things you enjoy, which helps you build skills within your job. And then not only that, when you have sort of a charitable mindset, you think about people you work with, whether they're colleagues, family members, friends, then you can see opportunities for other people, and you can help connect the dots for them too, which again is something that I think has been really rewarding, to be able to help people out in the career like that. Just to give a little list, here's some of the things that I find fulfilling in my job or in my career: the board governance, doing research, mentoring. These are all things that some of them have been formally cultivated in the course of my jobs, but some of them are looking beyond what you do on a day-to-day basis, finding things that make you happy, and really finding a way to make them a part of your professional life. And they build skill sets sometimes that aren't available in your immediate role. And I think that's one important thing, as I've mentored younger associates over the course of my career, is you often hear, I want to do more. I want to have greater responsibilities, and it's not happening fast enough. And so I think it's really great to be able to tell people, if there's something you want to do, find another way to make it happen. And sometimes that opens a new pathway for you, and sometimes it gives you the ability to grow in a way that you weren't finding in your existing role. So do a little bit of exploration for yourself. I think along with that, I'm really an advocate for spending some time periodically, whether it's annually or quarterly, but really thinking about where you want your career to go, and not necessarily this grand plan, but to to really find things that you want to add to your professional life and put it down on paper. I think it's really valuable to have a roadmap and a guide. And like I said, it's not that you have to achieve everything on here, but put it down on paper and think about things that would make you happy. And I think that's a really powerful process to go through. I've said a couple of times that your career is not necessarily going to be nonlinear. Sometimes you take a step back, or you need to pivot, or you're not moving as fast as you want. And I really think that having a statement of where you want to go is useful, just to sometimes nudge you into new direction if that's what you need, but also just to have things to focus on when you want to develop your own skill sets, that you can start doing this. And one great resource I found was actually from someone at DU recommended to me too, was this book called Designing Your Life, which I'll have at the end of here on a couple of resource lists. It's a great book of something that I think will resonate with this audience of entrepreneurs, of wanting to build things and create things. Is Designing Your Life is a book that's all about using the design process to create what you want to do within your life and in your career. And I think that's a really powerful process to go through, because you will probably do a lot of different things in the course of your career, and going through this design process, recalibrating, they even talk about making prototypes of a job you want to do. There's a lot of really good sound practical things that you can start doing in this book. So for myself personally, I've put down, just some of the things that I want to continue to do in the course of the rest of my career. And these are things that I look at. I sometimes, do a little bit of experimentation with, and things that really bring me enjoyment in my career. Maybe I see there's some chat or Q&A here. I think this might be a good time to pull something up. Let's see. Someone asked the question, someone's asking the question, is there any merit to beginning a career with entrepreneurship while still being able to work a traditional job? I think that's, if you have the energy, I think it's a great thing. I think if you have an entrepreneurial spirit and a passion, I think you should definitely find ways to incorporate that into your life. I think if you want to call it a traditional job, I think there's a lot of benefits to building a career that way. But I think one thing that I've been a proponent of in kind of creating my professional persona is doing a lot of different things. I think it started when I was a housemaster and a bank professional. Doing multiple things, I think, teaches you different skill sets. But I think what you do as an entrepreneur is so many invaluable things you learn about yourself, about creating something. I think creating something is going to continue to be a skill set that people need more and more of. So if you're someone who has a passion for entrepreneurship like this audience is, I think you should completely embrace it. I think doing it while you're in school is such a great thing to start doing. I think finding ways to continue doing that as a professional in whatever way you are evolving in your entrepreneurial experience. But then I would even say what you learn there also gives you a lot of great experiences to be able to provide in a mentorship opportunity for people going forward. So having multiple things going on, I often think is really a benefit to your career process. So when I talk about the discover fulfilling work, another part of what's been beneficial for me is I found that I've always been passionate about education, about learning, that what we do in formal education is a great foundation, but it's certainly not an end-all be-all. And as a CFA charter holder, we are required to do continuing education formally to maintain our charter status. As someone involved in economics, it's a discipline that's constantly evolving, and I've found that it's a tremendous way to continue learning is by continuing to hone what's going on in the economy, and this point in time is unfortunately a fascinating lab going on too in economics, and there's a lot of ways to move things forward. There's a lot of ways to advance the discipline right now, and it's something that I'm really looking forward to being involved in. Is just seeing how economics evolves, and hopefully can be more of a positive influence for people than the perception of the world after the financial crisis. So continuing education has been a really rewarding path for myself, and something I encourage. The next thing I wanted to put out here was also just maybe some of the things that might be of value now to a student entrepreneurship group like this. Whether you're a founder of an organization or an enterprise right now, I think there are some really great opportunities in terms of being in school and having an access of professionals, of experienced entrepreneurs, of people supportive of this process. I think you guys are in a unique place to be able to really tap into those resources. And I think like a lot of the companies that are really maturing now from the private space got their start during the global financial crisis. I think we're going to see the same thing happen here, with a lot of great companies, a lot of great products coming from entrepreneurs like yourselves at this point in time. One thing I wanted to circle back on was this concept too of, for myself, finding a passion of advisory work, of board work, of governance is, I think, as students, finding, organizing, and compiling an advisory board to help you with your company ideas, your company evolution, even if you're looking at multiple things. I think really putting together a list of whose insight you value, who as a colleague that you work with now, you really value their input, and really keep a running tab of who you want to be a voice as you germinate and grow and really flourish with your company. And especially if you're a serial entrepreneur, as you do this, having people that you can really help you in this process, because it's a big slug to be doing on your own. So having trusted, advised voices as part of your network is something I think you should constantly have in the foreground right now. One thing that I came across recently in an interview I heard with Josh Koppelman of First Round, and First Round I think is a great venture capital firm if you want intel on sort of how venture capitalists think, what's important to them. But he did an interview I listened to recently where he said one of his favorite things to really ask entrepreneurs is really what you don't know. A lot of the times when you do a pitch to investors, to everybody involved in getting a company going, is you talk about what you're doing, what you want to do, which are all very important things to be able to articulate. But also being able to answer what you don't know is, to him, even more powerful, because it shows that you've really put a lot of thought into exactly what you want to do, what your limitations are. And I thought his categorization of what his job as a venture capitalist is to do is to really find the lowest cost way to help you gain information and to become a better company in the future. I thought that was a really insightful way of formalizing what it is he and his company hopes to do. So I would encourage you, as you grow your companies, grow your ideas, to spend some good time what you don't know, whether it's what you don't know how powerful the market segment is for this, and so you're asking for money to explore that. I think is a really powerful question to ponder and to think about. Next, just a few I guess additional lessons that I thought might be really good things to think about right now in this point of time of your career. Things that I have seen a lot in the news right now as it relates to private investing is scenario analysis. There's a lot of different ways things are going right now. There's an extreme event going on right now, and I think it just highlights the importance of taking some time periodically to think about different scenarios that can happen for your company, for your career. Don't be afraid of it. Get some comfort around the possibilities and how you could move something forward, and really explore that. I think there's some usefulness to going through that process. Another thing I think, going back to what I really experienced early on in my career at Vanguard is the power of that idea, that vision for your company. And Jack Bogle was positively relentless in how he achieved that for the Vanguard Group. And I think taking a long view of so much of what we do in our jobs is day to day or month to month or even quarter to quarter. But I think for the successful founders that I've come across, that I've worked with in different ways, I think knowing where you want to go over the long term and constantly revisiting that and constantly projecting that to your stakeholder base, I think is really important. I think your employees will really value it. I think your investors absolutely need to understand that. And who you do business with, it's important to kind of their relationship with you, knowing that you really are committed to the long term in whatever that looks like, and you are able to articulate that. I guess the last thing that I've put together here, talked about it at the outset, that I think there's there's tons of resources out there. I think when I've thought about what are the 5 things recently that have been important to my career for one reason or another, I just put together a quick list of 5 books that have been useful. I talked about designing your life. Like I said, it's beyond, I think it's invaluable. I thought it was a great exercise. John Bogle, obviously, if you don't know, he's written a lot of books. And this one really resonates with me because it's a compilation of his speeches he gives to the company. But he really talks about how important character and ethics and the vision is to what you do. And being a former employee there, it still resonates with me. I think for this group of entrepreneurs here, Startup Communities has been a really fun book to read. If you aren't familiar, Brad Feld is a managing partner or a managing director at a venture capital firm here in Boulder called Foundry Group. He's put out several books. I think using the story of the Boulder and Denver entrepreneurial community for his book, I think there's a lot of really practical things and some really good insight that you guys can glean from this. And then 2 books that are more kind of really career focused are Switchers by Dawn Graham, who, if you don't know, she does a serious radio program on Wharton Radio. But she's also a DU grad and got her psychology PhD from DU. I just think she's got a great practical discussion format for her show and for her conversational style. And then finally, one that I came across, I guess it was a year or two ago, was Weird in a World That's Not. It's a fun, quirky story about what it's like to be a professional when you don't feel like you fit into any specific category. It's funny. Like I said, it's quirky, and it resonated with me because she's similar in my age group. So a lot of what she talks about from growing up throughout the course of her career really resonates, but she also writes in a funny format. So that's the extent of the formal stuff I had prepared here. And Amani, I don't know if we want to open it up for any direct questions. I think I addressed one of the questions out there, but if we wanted to go to any questions directly, this is probably the time.
Yeah, so if you have any more questions, I would just put it in the chat. Otherwise, if Jason wants to put his information out there for him to reach out to, and you guys can talk more about certain aspects, that'd be great. But you did a great job, Jason. I took a lot of information from it as a freshman in college, trying to find a trajectory for my own life, and that was really interesting. But yeah, if you guys have any more questions or concerns, want to just send those to Jason real quick in the chat or the Q&A. Otherwise, I think we're done here.
Okay.
Yeah. Does anyone
And
have any
Amani,
questions?
I can just add my contact information to the end of this deck and then send it over as well to you guys for uploading, or?
Yeah, you can totally do that. And we'll have the rest of this recording up on our website and with the slide deck where you can follow along and get the information as needed.
Okay. There was one other question that came up here. Grace just threw out a question. You have no formal experience in education, or excuse me, no formal or educational experience in business. What would you suggest are the areas that people new to business should prioritize learning about and focusing on? There's a lot there. I think as someone with a finance background, I think just a cursory understanding of really kind of how you finance an organization, how you do accounting, just very basic level, I think is important if you have your own company or if you want to really build a career in business. I think going through, there's even, things like accounting for dummies or just really remedial things. I think just having a quick understanding there. But I think what's even more important is really storytelling in your business and your product or where you want to go is becoming a bigger and bigger part of the business world. So early level marketing and even from what I've found in my experience, I had a history minor and that enjoyment of knowing the story of something. I think being able to articulate that story and being a good storyteller is also really good for business. And as someone with an economics background too, I think a high level macroeconomics class, which DU has a lot of great professors that do that, can really provide a good high level framework to think about things. And I'm happy to, if you email me directly after, sometime after this with my contact information, I'm happy to give even more pointed insight if that would be helpful. All right, I think that's the end of that, Amani.
Okay, well, I am glad everyone can show up. Thank you again, Jason, for sharing your wisdom with us. Like I said a little bit ago, that we are going to have this up along with the presentation with the slide deck with this information on it up later on Project Xite, I would say by the end of this week. And you can contact him that way, or you can just email us at Project Xite and we can get you direct contact with him if that's sooner. But everyone have a great day. Stay safe, and we'll see you guys later. Bye.
Thank you.